The moment Grayson Mercer saw the 8-year-old girl trapped in the burning SUV, her terrified screams cutting through the roar of the wildfire, he knew he had exactly 30 seconds before the flames would consume everything. He didn't know that the child he was about to save belonged to one of America's most powerful CEOs. He didn't know that his split-second decision to run straight into hell would change not just 2 lives, but an entire community forever. All he knew was this: a child needed help, and that was all that mattered. 12 hours earlier, the morning of September 15th had started like any other Saturday for Grayson Mercer. He stood at the kitchen counter of his modest 2-bedroom house in Cedar Ridge, California, scrambling eggs while his 11-year-old daughter, Wren, practiced her violin in the living room. The notes of Bach's Minuet in G drifted through the small home, occasionally punctuated by frustrated sighs when she hit a wrong note. At 41, with salt and pepper hair and broad shoulders built during his years as an army medic in Afghanistan, Grayson had learned to find joy in these small moments: the sound of his daughter practicing, the smell of breakfast cooking, the ordinary magic of a quiet Saturday morning. On the shelf above the television, a photograph of a woman with dark hair and a warm smile watched over them. Elise Mercer, nurse, wife, mother. Gone 3 years now, taken by cancer that had spread too fast and too far for anyone to stop. 3 years since he had held her hand as she took her last breath. 3 years of raising Wren alone. 3 years of learning how to be both mother and father to a grieving child while drowning in his own grief. The violin rental was their one luxury, something Grayson insisted on maintaining despite the tight budget from his mechanic's salary at Henderson's auto shop. Elise had loved music. She had dreamed of Wren learning an instrument, and Grayson was determined to honor that wish, no matter how many overtime shifts it required. "Dad, this part is impossible," Wren called out from the living room. Grayson smiled, wiping his hands on the dish towel tucked into his belt. "Nothing's impossible, Wren. Remember what we always say?" "One note at a time," she replied, and he could hear the eye roll in her voice. He plated the eggs and walked into the living room, where Wren sat cross-legged on their worn brown couch. Her dark hair, the same shade as her mother's, fell in a curtain across her face as she studied the sheet music. Moments like these still caught him off guard. How much she looked like Elise when she concentrated, the way she pursed her lips when focusing, just as her mother had done when reviewing nursing charts late at night. "Breakfast is ready," he announced, "and after you eat, we're heading up to Pine Lake for that hiking trip I promised." Wren's face lit up. "Really? You got the day off?" "Traded shifts with Jerome. He owes me one from when his kid had that soccer tournament. Can we go to Crystal Falls? The one where you proposed to Mom?" Grayson's throat tightened. Crystal Falls. The waterfall where he had carried a ring in his pocket for 3 weeks, waiting for the perfect moment. Where Elise had said yes before he even finished asking the question. "That's a pretty long hike. You sure you're up for it?" "I'm 11, not 5, Wren said with mock indignation. "Besides, I want to see the place where you and Mom started our family." "All right, Crystal Falls it is." The drive up Highway 38 took them through increasingly dense forest. Ponderosa pines and Douglas firs lined the winding road, their branches creating a canopy overhead. Wren had her window down, her hands surfing through the air current, humming along to the classic rock station Grayson favored. "Tell me the story again," she said, "about when you proposed to Mom." "I carried that ring in my pocket for 3 weeks, waiting for the perfect moment. When we got to Crystal Falls, I started to kneel down, and your mother said yes before I even finished the question." Wren laughed. "Mom was always impatient. She called it knowing what she wanted." The words hung in the air, bittersweet. Elise had known what she wanted: a family, a home filled with music and love. She had gotten 6 years of it before the cancer came. Grayson noticed the unusual warmth in the air for September. The leaves on the trees seemed brittle, crackling in the slight breeze. California had experienced another dry summer, the fourth in a row, leaving the mountains around Cedar Ridge primed for disaster. Then Wren pointed ahead. "Dad, look! Is that smoke?" Grayson's hands tightened on the steering wheel. In the distance, a gray plume rose above the tree line, darker and more aggressive than any controlled burn. His mind immediately began calculating wind direction, distance, potential escape routes. His phone buzzed with an emergency alert. Wildfire reported in Deer Creek Canyon. Evacuation orders in effect for zones 4 through 7. "We're in zone 12, he told Wren, keeping his voice calm. "We're fine." But even as he spoke, he was mentally mapping alternate routes home. The military training never fully went away. Always have an exit strategy. Always know your options. They had just passed the Pine Lake turnoff when everything changed. The wind shifted suddenly, violently, sending pine needles and debris swirling across the road. The smoke plume that had been drifting north suddenly bent toward them like a living thing hunting prey. Grayson could smell it now, that acrid, unmistakable scent of burning forest. "We're heading back," he announced, already looking for a place to turn around. That's when they hit the traffic. Cars, trucks, and RVs had materialized from nowhere, all heading down the mountain, a serpentine line of vehicles trying to navigate the narrow road. Through their windows, Grayson could see controlled panic on every face. His phone rang. Jerome from the auto shop. "Gray, you up on the mountain?" Fire jumped the containment line. "They're evacuating everything west of Pine Lake. We're on 38, about mile marker 23. Traffic's backing up. Get out of there, brother. This thing's moving fast. Real fast." The line crackled and went dead. Cell towers overloaded with emergency calls. The sky was changing color now, blue giving way to an ominous orange-gray. Ash began to fall like black snow, speckling the windshield with tiny flakes of destruction. That's when Grayson heard it, a child's scream, high-pitched and terrified, cutting through the chaos like a blade. From a black Cadillac Escalade about 6 cars ahead, hazard lights flashing. Through the heavily tinted rear window, he could see a small figure thrashing against what appeared to be a jammed seatbelt. No adults visible inside the vehicle. Every instinct Grayson had developed in 4 years of combat medicine activated at once. He had 30 seconds, maybe less. He turned to Wren, gripping her shoulders firmly but gently. "Listen to me carefully. Stay in the truck. Windows up. Air conditioning on recirculate. If I'm not back in 5 minutes, call 911 and tell them your exact location. Mile marker 23 on Highway 38. Do you understand?" Tears streamed down Wren's face. "Dad, no. Don't leave me. There's a child who needs help, Wren. That's what we do. We help people. I'll be right back. I promise." He was out of the truck before she could respond. Grayson sprinted toward the SUV, weaving between abandoned vehicles. The smoke was thickening with every step, reducing visibility to maybe 30 feet. His eyes watered. His throat burned with each breath. The screaming grew louder as he approached the Cadillac. Through the window, he could see her clearly now. A little girl with blonde hair and wide blue eyes, maybe 8 years old, yanking frantically at a seatbelt that refused to release. Trapped. Alone. Absolutely terrified. "Where are your parents?" he shouted through the glass. The girl pointed ahead, sobbing too hard to speak clearly. Through the smoke, Grayson could see 2 figures near a silver Mercedes several cars ahead. A woman in a business suit, apparently helping someone from a different vehicle, too far away to help her own daughter. There was no time to get her. The fire was cresting the ridge above them like an orange tsunami. Trees were exploding, the superheated air turning the moisture in their trunks to instant steam. Grayson tried the door handle. Locked. He grabbed a tire iron from a nearby abandoned car and swung hard at the window. The safety glass spiderwebbed on the first strike, crumbled inward on the second. He reached through, ignoring the cuts on his arms from the glass fragments, and manually unlocked the door. The heat was incredible now, like standing inside an oven. "What's your name, sweetheart?" Tatum, the girl sobbed. "Okay, Tatum. I'm Grayson. I'm going to get you out of here." He climbed into the vehicle. The seat belt had indeed jammed, the mechanism locked tight. He pulled out his pocket knife, a relic from his army days, and began sawing through the tough nylon material. "Are you an angel?" Tatum whispered, watching him with those terrified blue eyes. "Just a dad," he said, "just like you have a mom who loves you." The strap finally gave way. Grayson scooped Tatum into his arms just as a burning branch crashed onto the SUV's hood. The metal groaned and buckled from the sudden heat. "Close your eyes and hold your breath," he told her, pulling his shirt up over her face. Then he ran. Behind them, the Cadillac's gas tank ruptured with a sound like a gunshot. The heat on his back was unbearable, like being pressed against a giant iron. His jacket began to smoke, the synthetic material starting to melt. Someone screamed his name. Ren, standing outside the truck despite his orders, reaching for him. Strong hands suddenly grabbed him from the side. Other evacuees who had seen what was happening, forming a human chain to pull him and Tatum to safety. They tumbled behind a large pickup truck just as a wall of flames swept across where they had been standing 3 seconds earlier. The Cadillac exploded, a pillar of fire reaching toward the orange sky. Someone threw a blanket over Grayson's back, smothering the flames that had caught on his jacket. And then, through the chaos, a woman's scream. "My daughter, Tatum!" A woman in an expensive business suit came running toward them, her face a mask of absolute terror. Blonde hair disheveled and ash-covered, designer clothes ruined beyond recognition. But even in that moment of chaos, she carried herself with unmistakable authority. This was someone used to being in charge, used to having control over every situation, which made the raw vulnerability in her eyes all the more striking. "Mommy!" Tatum cried out, struggling in Grayson's arms. The woman fell to her knees beside them, pulling Tatum into a fierce embrace. Her whole body shook with sobs as she held her daughter, running her hands over the girl's face and arms, checking desperately for injuries. "I left her," she gasped between sobs. "Just for a minute. There was an accident ahead. Someone needed help. I thought she would be safe in the locked car. I thought—" She looked up at Grayson then, and something shifted in her expression. A recognition of what had almost happened. What would have happened if he hadn't been there? "You saved her. How can I ever—" Grayson, still struggling to breathe through the pain of his burns, shook his head. "No thanks necessary. Anyone would have done the same. But they didn't," she whispered. "Everyone else ran past that burning SUV. Only you stopped." A paramedic appeared, insisting on treating Grayson's burns. As he was led toward the medical tent, he heard another evacuee whisper to her companion, "Do you know who that is? That's Vivian Calloway, CEO of Callaway Technologies. She's worth billions." Grayson absorbed this information with a mix of surprise and complete indifference. Billionaire or not, she was just a mother who had almost lost her child. He understood that terror intimately. He had lived with that fear every day while Elise was fighting cancer. 3 days after the fire, Grayson and Ren returned to Cedar Ridge to assess the damage. The town looked like a war zone. Henderson's auto shop, where Grayson had worked for 8 years, was nothing but a concrete foundation covered in ash. The Ford pickup truck that he and Elise had bought together during their first year of marriage had burned with the rest of the abandoned vehicles on Highway 38. Even the trail to Crystal Falls had been consumed by the flames. The place where he had proposed, where Elise had said yes, where they had promised each other forever. All of it gone. Grayson stood in the ruins of the auto shop, staring at the twisted remains of the lift where he had spent countless hours. Something inside him cracked. Everything that connected him to his old life, everything that held the memory of Elise, destroyed in a single afternoon. Dad? Ren's small hand slipped into his. Where do we go now? He didn't have an answer. That evening, his phone rang, a number he didn't recognize. Mr. Mercer, this is Vivian Calloway. I hope I'm not disturbing you. How did you get my number? A pause, then an almost embarrassed laugh. I run a tech company. Getting phone numbers is kind of what we do. I'm sorry. That's probably inappropriate. I just wanted to check that you and Ren are settled okay. We're managing, he said, not mentioning that they were sleeping on Jerome's couch because their house, while still standing, had no power and the air was too toxic to breathe. I've arranged a suite at the Riverside Grand Hotel for you, Vivian continued, for as long as you need it. That's very generous, but we can't accept. Please, Vivian's voice cracked slightly. I need to do something. When I close my eyes, I see that SUV in flames, and I know Tatum would have been inside if you hadn't. Please let me help. Grayson thought about refusing. He didn't take charity. He had his pride. But then he looked at Ren, curled up on Jerome's too small couch, clutching the one photograph of Elise they had managed to grab before evacuating. What would Elise say? He could almost hear her voice. Your pride will be the death of you, Grayson Mercer. Sometimes accepting help is a gift to the person giving it. All right, he said finally, just until we figure out our next steps. The hotel suite was larger than their entire house. 3 bathrooms, a view of the city, room service that arrived on silver trays. Ren stood in the doorway, mouth agape. Dad, there are 3 bathrooms. Why would anyone need 3 bathrooms? Rich people logic, Grayson said, but he was smiling despite everything. That night, after Ren had fallen asleep in a bed softer than anything she had ever experienced, Grayson stood on the balcony looking out at the mountains. The fire still glowed on the horizon, his entire past burning. His phone rang. Vivian again. I heard about the auto shop, she said. About your truck. I'm so sorry, just things. We're alive. That's what matters. Still, she paused. I have a proposition. I'm establishing a disaster response center here in Cedar Ridge. State-of-the-art facility, training programs, emergency coordination. The community needs it after this. That's generous. I need someone to run it. Someone who understands crisis response, who has medical training, who knows this community. She took a breath. You spent 4 years as an Army medic. You know everyone in this town. And you just proved you can stay calm when everything is literally on fire. The job is yours if you want it. Grayson's first instinct was to refuse. This felt like charity dressed up as opportunity. But before he could speak, Ren appeared beside him, having overheard everything. Dad, she said quietly, what would Mom say? The question hit him like a punch. Elise, lying in her hospital bed, weak from chemotherapy but still smiling, still teaching, still loving. Sometimes accepting help is its own kind of giving, she had said. You give others the chance to be generous. That's a gift too. Ren was watching him with eyes too wise for 11 years old. I'll think about it, Grayson told Vivian. And he did. 6 months later, Grayson was director of the Cedar Ridge Disaster Response Center, and he and Ren were living in the east wing of the Calloway estate. It wasn't supposed to happen that way. He had insisted on finding his own place. But the housing crisis in post-fire Cedar Ridge made that impossible. Every rental taken, every room filled. Vivian had offered the east wing of her mansion with its own entrance, complete privacy, like a separate apartment. And by then, Ren and Tatum had become inseparable. The 2 girls, despite their vastly different backgrounds, had formed a bond forged in shared trauma and cemented by genuine affection. They practiced violin together, did homework together, whispered secrets that made no sense to the adults around them. sisters in everything but blood. The dinner table at the Calloway estate became a nightly ritual. Not the formal dining room with its crystal chandeliers and seating for 20. The kitchen, where Grayson cooked simple meals while Vivian pretended not to be amazed that pasta could taste so good without a personal chef. "You're staring," he said one evening, catching her watching him stir the sauce. "Just wondering how you make everything look so easy. 4 years of army rations teach you to appreciate real cooking." Tatum bounded into the kitchen, Wren close behind. "Can we have dessert first tonight?" Tatum asked, bouncing on her heels. Then she added almost casually, "Please, Dad?" The word hung in the air. Everyone froze. Tatum's eyes went wide, realizing what she had said. "I mean, I'm sorry. I didn't." But Grayson just smiled. "Dessert comes after dinner, kiddo. Those are the rules." The tension broke. Vivian caught his eye across the kitchen, and something unspoken passed between them. Something that felt terrifyingly like family. 8 months after the fire, disaster struck again. Tatum collapsed during PE class at school. Running laps one moment, on the ground the next. Grayson got the call at the response center. He broke every speed limit getting to the hospital. The diagnosis came that evening from Dr. Kenji Tanaka, a pediatric cardiologist. Long QT syndrome, he explained gently, a genetic cardiac condition affecting the heart's electrical system. With proper medication and monitoring, Tatum can live a completely normal life, but will need to restrict intense physical activities. "What about swimming?" Vivian asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Tanaka's pause said everything. Competitive swimming would be too risky. "I'm sorry." Swimming was Tatum's passion, her identity, her dream, gone in a single diagnosis. Grayson found Vivian at 3 in the morning, standing in the hospital hallway staring at nothing. "I almost killed her in the fire," she said, her voice hollow. "And now this, her dream, everything she loves." "She's alive," Grayson said. "That's what matters." "I know, but she'll never forgive me. First, I left her in that burning car. Now my genes have stolen her future." Grayson recognized the spiral. The guilt that consumed you when bad things happened to your child. "When Elise got sick," he said quietly, "I blame myself for not noticing the symptoms sooner, for not forcing her to see a doctor when she first complained about being tired. I spent months convinced that if I had just done something different, she would still be alive. How did you stop blaming yourself?" "I didn't. Not completely. But I learned that guilt doesn't change anything. It just steals the present while you're stuck in the past." He took her hand. "Tatum needs you present, Vivian, not drowning in what-ifs." She leaned against him, the CEO facade completely gone. Just a scared mother, letting someone else be strong. "I don't know how to do this," she whispered. "I've always had control, had a plan. But this, I can't fix this with money or strategy or willpower. No, you just show up every day. That's the whole job." The media discovered their story on a slow news week. Billionaire CEO and blue-collar hero, fairy tale or gold-digging scheme. The article painted Grayson as an opportunist who had leveraged his rescue of Tatum into a cushy living situation and a fake job. Wren came home from school in tears. Kids had shown her the article, called her father a gold digger. "I should leave," Grayson told Vivian that night. "This isn't worth what it's costing you and Tatum." Her eyes flashed with anger. "You want a tabloid reporter to decide our lives? This isn't about what I want. It's about your company, your reputation." "My reputation?" "Grayson, I built Callaway Technologies from nothing. I was pregnant and alone, and everyone said I would fail. I didn't care what they thought then. I don't care now." She stepped closer. "And more importantly, you are the best thing that has happened to me and Tatum in years. I am not letting some bitter gossip columnist take that away. But the attacks continued until Grayson decided to confront the source directly. Blaine Whitmore was smaller than expected, mid-40s, the look of a man who had been disappointed by life too many times. "Come to threaten me?" Whitmore asked when Grayson walked into his office. "No, to talk." Grayson sat down without invitation. "You've spent 2 months trying to destroy me, but you've never asked me a single question, never tried to hear my side. I know your type. Saw an opportunity, took it. Is that what you think?" A photograph on Whitmore's desk caught Grayson's eye. A young girl, bright smile, maybe 7 or 8. "Your daughter?" Something cracked behind Whitmore's cynicism. "Niece. She died in the Malibu fire 5 years ago. No one got to her in time." Silence. Grayson understood then. The bitterness, the need to tear down a rescue story, because for Whitmore, no rescue had come. "I'm sorry," Grayson said. "I truly am. You don't know anything about sorry. I know exactly about sorry. My wife died 3 years ago. Cancer. I watched her fade for 18 months and couldn't do anything to stop it." More silence. "I didn't save Tatum because I saw an opportunity," Grayson continued. "I saved her because I heard a child screaming, and my body moved before my brain could think." "That's it." Whitmore stared at him for a long moment. "My niece loves swimming too," he said quietly. "She was going to try out for her school team that year." 2 days later, Whitmore published a new article, "The Real Hero of Cedar Ridge, a story of sacrifice, loss, and rebuilding." The article went viral, but this time for the right reasons. For the first time since the fire, Grayson could walk through Cedar Ridge without suspicious stares. The community had accepted him. The narrative had shifted from scandal to inspiration. But one relationship remained broken. Aunt Cordelia arrived 2 weeks later, Vivian's only living relative, the aunt who had cut her off years ago for choosing single motherhood. She appeared at the estate without warning, disapproval radiating from every pore. "Vivian, I see you've made some interesting choices." Her gaze swept over Grayson with barely concealed contempt. The confrontation was ugly. Cordelia questioned everything: Grayson's motives, his background, his right to be in her niece's home. But when she turned her criticism toward Wren and Tatum, calling their friendship inappropriate given the class difference, Vivian exploded. "Get out!" "Excuse me? You heard me. I built this company without you. I raised Tatum without you. I will not let you poison my daughter or Wren with your prejudice. You'll regret this. I regret letting you through my door." Cordelia left. The door slammed behind her. Vivian stood shaking. Grayson went to her. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did. Because for once in my life, I know exactly what I want." She looked up at him. "I want you, Grayson, not because you saved Tatum, because you're the first person who's ever looked at me and seen just Vivian, not the CEO, not the billionaire, just me." 1 year after the fire, Dr. Tanaka called with unexpected news. Tatum's response to treatment has been exceptional. With continued management and proper supervision, there's no reason she can't return to competitive swimming. The scream Tatum let out when they told her could probably be heard 3 counties over. She launched herself at Grayson first. "You saved me twice. First from the fire. Now this. You saved yourself, kiddo. I just opened the door." The Tatum Callaway Cardiac Screening Initiative launched that spring. Tatum's idea, born from her own fear and transformed into something that could help others. 5 student athletes were diagnosed with previously unknown heart conditions in the first month alone. The 5th diagnosis hit closest to home. Marcus Jr., the teenage son of Jerome, had been playing basketball obsessively since his father lost his job at Henderson's. 3 hours of practice every day, pushing his body to its limits. Never knowing his heart carried the same silent danger that had nearly killed Tatum. Jerome came to see Grayson the day after the diagnosis. The doctor said he could have collapsed any day. Jerome said, tears streaming down his face. On the court. During a game. We would have lost him. He gripped Grayson's shoulders. You saved my boy, Gray. First you pull strangers from burning cars. Now this. How do I ever repay you? Tatum saved him. This whole program was her idea. Then thank her too. Thank all of you. Because my son is alive. The proposal happened at the most public moment possible. The one-year anniversary of the cardiac screening program, a celebration in the Cedar Ridge Memorial Garden, built where Henderson's auto shop once stood. 200 people in attendance. News cameras rolling. Vivian was mid-speech when Grayson walked onto the stage. She stopped, confused. Grayson? He took the microphone. 18 months ago, he said to the crowd, I lost everything in a fire. My job, my truck, the places that held my memories of my late wife. I thought my life was over. The audience went silent. But then I met a woman, strong, brilliant, fierce in her love for her daughter. She offered me a hand when I didn't want to take it. She showed me that from ashes, new things can grow. He turned to face Vivian. I don't have much to offer you. No fortune, no status, just a heart that was broken but is healing. A daughter who already loves you like a mother, and a promise that I will spend every day trying to be worthy of you. He dropped to one knee. Will you marry me? For 3 seconds, absolute silence. Then Ren's voice rang out, say yes. And Tatum's, Mom, say yes. Vivian laughed through her tears. Yes, 1,000 times yes. The wedding was held in the Memorial Garden. Ren and Tatum served as co-maids of honor in matching blue dresses that had required 12 shopping trips to select. Jerome gave a toast that made everyone laugh and cry. From changing oil to marrying a billionaire. Gray, you always did aim high. But the moment that stayed with everyone came when the girls stood up to speak together. 2 years ago, Ren began, we both lost something precious. I lost my mom. Tatum never had a dad. But a fire brought us together, Tatum continued. It destroyed a lot. But from those ashes, something amazing grew, they said in unison. A family. Not perfect, not simple, but real, and ours. The officiant pronounced them husband and wife. As they kissed, Ren and Tatum rushed the stage. We're officially sisters now, Tatum shouted. We were already sisters, Ren laughed. This just makes it legal. Standing at the edge of the garden, watching quietly, was Cordelia Ashworth. She approached after most guests had left. I read about the screening program, she said quietly, about the children whose lives were saved, about what you've built here. She turned to Grayson. I was wrong about you. I saw a mechanic and assumed the worst. I didn't see the man who runs into fires for strangers, who builds programs that save children, who makes my niece smile in ways I haven't seen since she was a little girl. Her voice cracked. I want to be part of this family. If it's not too late. Vivian embraced her aunt. It's never too late. 1 year after the wedding, Jasper Mercer Calloway was born, a healthy baby boy with his father's stubborn chin and his mother's sharp eyes. His cardiac screening came back clear. No long QT syndrome. Ren and Tatum appointed themselves his official protectors. He's going to be the most prepared baby in California, Ren declared. I'll have him swimming by age 2, Tatum added. The final scene happened at Crystal Falls. The trail had been restored after the fire. New growth covered the blackened trees, life returning where devastation had ruled. The family of 5 stood by the waterfall where Grayson had proposed to Elise years before. Ren played the minuet in G on her violin, the melody Elise had loved. The notes drifted through the forest, echoing off the rocks. Grayson placed a small bouquet at the base of a tree. Elise, he said softly, I want you to know I haven't forgotten. You're still part of this family, but I found happiness again. I think you would approve of her. She's strong like you were. Vivian stepped forward, adding her own tribute. Thank you, she whispered, for loving him first. For Ren, for teaching him how to be the man I fell in love with. Tatum tugged on Grayson's sleeve. Does Mama Elise really hear us? Ren answered. She always hears us, and now she has more people to love. Ren stepped closer to Vivian, slipping her hand into her stepmother's. I have two moms now, she said softly. Mama Elise, who gave me life, and Mom Vivian, who chose to love me. Vivian's eyes filled with tears. It was the first time Ren had called her mom without hesitation. I will always choose you, Vivian whispered. Always. Tatum grinned. I have two moms too, and a dad, and a brother, and a sister. I have everything. Jasper, in Vivian's arms, gurgled his agreement. Grayson looked at his family, built from tragedy, forged in fire, held together by love that had found a way to grow, even in the darkest soil. Behind them, the mountains of Cedar Ridge rose green and alive, the fire scars still visible if you knew where to look, but covered now by new growth, new possibilities. Elise had once told him that phoenixes didn't rise despite the ashes. They rose because of them. Standing there with his wife, his daughters, his son, in the place where one love story had begun and another had found its continuation, Grayson finally understood. They were all phoenixes, and they had risen.